All right, Raider Nation, buckle up because we've got a lot to unpack today, and it's all about the NFL draft. Rumors flying around the front office, potential trades heating up, and some surprising names that might be heading to Vegas. Let's dive right into what's been going on. Over the past 48 hours, things have gotten intense. Reports have surfaced that the Cleveland Browns and New York Giants are actively taking calls for the number 2 and number 3 overall picks in the draft. Now, this could be a real sign of movement, or it could be one of those classic pre-draft smokescreens designed to stir up interest or confuse other teams about their real intentions. Honestly, it's hard to say right now because so much information is getting leaked and not all of it lines up. But here's the thing. If I'm running a team like the Browns or the Giants and I feel like my franchise is in need of a rebuild or a long-term plan, then yeah, I'm picking up the phone. I'm listening. You don't just ignore a shot at stacking picks or maybe getting a player who fits your scheme better down the board. The challenge is figuring out which teams are really trying to move up. A lot of speculation out there, but not a lot of substance behind most of it. We keep hearing names like Ashton, Genty popping up in these conversations. There's no denying his talent. He's been a consistent presence in draft talks. But I'm not convinced guys like Hunter or Abdul Carter are going to fall far enough to be within reach unless someone moves up aggressively. And that brings us to the Raiders. Look, if by some twist of fate one of those top tier players slides down to pick number 4, I'd be calling every team ahead of us if I were in that war room. But realistically, I don't think the Raiders are part of the group trying to jump up to the 2nd or 3rd spot. Based on what I've heard and the buzz going around, it seems like other franchises are leading those talks. The Raiders' name hasn't come up in any serious trade chatter for those premium picks. That tells me the front office might be playing things more conservative this year. Now let's shift gears to the players themselves, and specifically, let's talk about Genty. There's been this growing notion that he might actually be in play for the Raiders at pick number 6, but the narrative is changing a bit. Earlier in the process, there was a lot of excitement around him from inside the building, but now I'm hearing they may be cooling off slightly. Don't get me wrong, there's still a legitimate 50-50 shot they take him. It's basically like flipping a coin at this point. The team has done their homework, had the interviews, seen the workouts, and met with the guy. There's interest, no doubt. But the way the board is shaping up, there are some other names gaining steam in that war room. From what I've picked up, Genty still ranks high on the Raiders list, but he's not the surefire pick that people thought he was a few weeks ago. That being said, if you force me to place a bet right now, I'd still lean toward Genty being the most likely name called when it's our turn. The coaching staff seems to like him, the system fits his skill set, and the interview after his pro day really moved the needle. The head coach and running backs coach both spent quality time with him during that visit, and that kind of face time is not nothing. But then there's the wild card. Does Genty want to be a Raider? That's a real question. And to his credit, he's been open about what he thinks his range is in the draft. He believes the 6th pick is the highest he'll go, and he's aware that could be the Raiders or a team trading into that slot. That kind of honesty is rare. Most players keep it vague, but Genty put it out there. He knows the higher he goes, the better the contract. But you also get the sense that he's thinking about fit, opportunity, the locker room vibe, all that stuff. Maybe he sees Vegas as a great situation. Maybe not. But he's definitely a player to watch closely on draft night. Now other insiders have chimed in with their thoughts too. Some are saying the team is also high on a couple of offensive tackles. That would align with what we've heard from the front office about wanting to strengthen the offensive line. One key figure in the building has been pretty vocal. Behind the scenes, of course, about needing to reinforce the trenches. So you've got Genty in the mix, but you also have guys like Armando and Mason Graham rising on the board. From what I've heard from conversations over the weekend, those 3 are probably the top targets at pick 6. Forget the names like Shador and Jalen Walker for now. The focus seems to be on those core 3, and they all bring something different to the table. Mason Graham in particular is one to keep an eye on. There are whispers that the Jaguars, who pick right before us, might pass on him. That would be huge because a lot of people expected Graham to be their guy. If he slides even just one spot, don't be surprised if the Raiders pounce. They've shown consistent interest in him throughout this process. They've been doing their homework, setting up interviews, reviewing tape, talking to people in his circle. You don't go that far unless there's real consideration. What complicates things is the uncertainty surrounding Kolton Miller. I had a quick conversation with him over the weekend. I'm not going to spill all the details, but I can tell you that he wants to stay a Raider. That's not in question. He's invested in this team, and he appreciates the support from the fans. There's a real mutual respect there. But the contract situation, that's another story. It doesn't seem like there's been major progress yet on that front. And when you look at what the team has been prioritizing, re-signing Max Crosby, making free agency moves, the Geno Smith trade, hosting top 30 visits, it becomes clear that Miller's extension might not be at the top of the list right now. If they're going to get something done with him, I'd expect it to happen after the draft, maybe even closer to the start of organized team activities in May. But here's the concern. If we hit mid-June and nothing's been signed, that sends a message, and not necessarily a good one. If I'm Kolton, I'm starting to wonder what that says about how the team values me long-term. We're not there yet, but it's a situation worth monitoring closely, and that's why we've been paying extra attention to the offensive linemen the team has shown interest in now. Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Josh Connolly, Charles Grant Jackson, Slater, Caleb Etienne, Caleb Rogers. These are not just names. These are guys the Raiders are actively evaluating. The variety of positions, the versatility, the upside, it all points to the possibility that the team is at least preparing for life after Kolton, just in case. They're doing their due diligence, and you don't do that unless there's at least some doubt about a contract getting done. That's the business side of the game, and it's playing out in real time. Stick around, because in the next part, we're going even deeper into trade scenarios, more player evaluations, and a breakdown of what the Raiders could be thinking. Heading into draft night, trust me, you won't want to miss it. All right, Raider Nation, let's keep this rolling because the second half of this discussion is just as loaded as the first. While the buzz around Genty, Armanu, and Mason Graham keeps intensifying, the reality is the Raiders could still pull something unexpected on draft night. You've got to consider the mindset of this new front office. They've shown they're not afraid to shake things up. Just look at how they've handled the offseason already, trading for Geno Smith, being aggressive in free agency, and clearly focusing on bringing in high character, high upside talent. That tells me they're building something deliberate, with long-term success in mind rather than short-term flashes. One of the most intriguing parts of this draft cycle has been how the team is playing its cards close to the chest. There's been chatter, real whispers from legit sources, that the Raiders have done more than 30 pre-draft visits. That's not just due diligence. That's a sign they're exploring every possible option, even ones that might not seem obvious to fans or analysts. There was one prospect in particular who had a visit recently, and the timing couldn't have been more interesting. From what I gathered, that meeting might have been more than just a courtesy. He's an offensive tackle, projected to go somewhere between the mid to late first round, and his name keeps coming up in draft rooms across the league. What makes it fascinating is the speculation that he could fall far enough that the Raiders might move back into the late first to grab him. If they don't land someone they're fully in love with at 6, they could trade down or use later capital to jump back in. That would be a bold move, but one this regime wouldn't shy away from. Some insiders have suggested that the Raiders view this particular tackle as a more prototypical left tackle than some of the other top names. He's got cleaner footwork, a steadier base, and while his ceiling might not be quite as high, his floor is much more dependable. That matters, especially when you consider the amount of pressure a left tackle faces protecting the quarterback's blind side. He's not necessarily the flashiest name on the board, but in terms of plug-and-play potential, he might be one of the safest picks in the entire class. And let's not forget, the Raiders have always valued grit, consistency, and guys who can come in and get to work without needing a year to figure things out. This player checks those boxes. But here's where things get even more complicated. There are scouts who think he might actually be better suited at guard in the pros. That alone has caused some debate. Can he stay outside and hold his own against elite edge rushers? Or would he be more effective kicking inside where he doesn't have to worry about speed rushes as much? That versatility could help or hurt him depending on the team's scheme and need. One respected analyst who doesn't always get the spotlight but knows his stuff has this player graded as his top interior lineman in the class, despite him playing mostly left tackle in college. That same analyst noted how rarely this guy allowed pressure, how solid his hand placement is, and how well he moves in space. Especially when pulling or getting to the second level in the run game, he's not dominant in run blocking, but he's efficient and technically sound. That's enough for a team like the Raiders to give him a real look, especially if there's any hesitation about Kolton Miller's future. Speaking of which, this front office has been sending some mixed signals. 1 minute, it looks like they're all in on getting a deal done with Miller. The next, they're stacking meetings with offensive line prospects across the board. That doesn't mean they're definitely moving on from him, but it does suggest they're preparing for every scenario. That's smart business, but it also creates uncertainty. Miller has been a cornerstone for this team. He's a fan favorite, a vocal leader, and someone who's weathered some tough seasons. If the team lets that kind of guy walk, it says a lot about the direction they're heading in. Maybe they want a younger, cheaper option at tackle. Maybe they're just playing hardball in negotiations. Either way, we'll know more once the draft dust settles. Now, let's circle back to Genty. I can't stress enough how much interest there still is around him. Yes, the team might be cooling slightly, but that doesn't mean they've lost interest altogether. There's a belief inside the building that Genty could thrive in this system. He's got the burst, the patience, the vision. It's all there. The only hesitation might come down to positional value. You've heard it before. Running backs aren't as highly valued in the first round anymore. Teams want to get them on day 2 or 3, ride out their rookie deals, and avoid long-term contracts. That philosophy is spreading across the league, but there are still exceptions. And if a team believes a running back is special, like franchise-altering special, they're going to make the pick. Genty might just be one of those guys. I've even heard from someone close to the coaching staff who said Genty would change the tone of the offense immediately. That's high praise, and apparently Genty himself knows where he stands. He's told people around him that he sees Vegas as one of his top destinations, not just for the football, but because of the fit, the scheme, and the opportunity. That doesn't mean it's a lock, but it certainly makes the connection stronger. If he's there at 6, and if the top tackles are off the board or the front office isn't sold on any of them, don't be surprised if that card gets turned in with his name on it. The bigger question is what happens after the first round. The Raiders have other needs: defensive tackle, linebacker, secondary depth, and they're not going to ignore those. That's why a lot of folks believe a trade down is still on the table. If they can slide down a few spots, pick up an extra day 2 pick, and still get a guy they like, whether it's Genty, Graham, or someone else, that's a win. They've also been sniffing around the mid-round corners, safeties, and some hybrid backers who can play in space. There's clearly a vision here, and the draft is going to tell us exactly what that vision looks like. But one more name to keep an eye on: Mason Graham. He's got a ton of momentum right now. People thought he'd be gone by pick 5, but if the Jaguars go in another direction and he's sitting there at 6, things could get interesting fast. Graham is disruptive, plays with power, and has a motor that never stops. He fits the mold of what this defense is trying to build: tough, relentless, and disruptive up front. I've heard coaches rave about his tape. The buzz is real. He might not be a household name to casual fans, but inside league circles, his stock is soaring. And the Raiders, they're paying attention. So as we gear up for draft night, the strategy seems clear. Be flexible, be prepared, and don't be afraid to move if the board falls a certain way. This front office has laid the groundwork for something special, and the draft is going to be their biggest statement yet. Whether it's Genty, Graham, or a surprise name no one saw coming, one thing's for sure: the Raiders are in position to make some serious noise. And I, for one, can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In a bold and unexpected move that has sent shockwaves to the NFL, the Las Vegas Raiders have officially acquired star cornerback Patrick Surtain II. The announcement comes just days before the 2025 NFL Draft, signaling a clear message from the franchise. They are done waiting and ready to win now. Surtain, widely regarded as one of the premier cornerbacks in the league, was a cornerstone of the Denver Broncos defense since being drafted in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. His combination of elite coverage skills, athleticism, and football IQ made him a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks and a dream asset for any defensive coordinator. The Raiders' decision to make such a high-profile move shows a new level of aggression from the front office under general manager Tom Telesco and head coach Antonio Pierce. While the full details of the trade have not yet been disclosed, early reports suggest that the Raiders gave up significant draft capital, possibly including their first-round pick this year, to bring Surtain to Las Vegas. For a team that has struggled to find consistency in its secondary, this could be the missing piece that solidifies their defense and allows them to compete at a higher level in the AFC West. The addition of Surtain not only boosts the Raiders' chances on the field, but also adds a spark to a fan base hungry for postseason success. With elite talents like Max Crosby up front and now Surtain anchoring the back end, the Raiders' defense suddenly looks far more formidable. The move also indicates that the team may be gearing up to draft offensive talent to complement this upgraded unit, possibly targeting a quarterback or offensive lineman with their next available picks. This acquisition could mark a turning point in the Raiders' trajectory. After years of rebuilding and retooling, Las Vegas might finally have the firepower and leadership to make a serious playoff push. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.